Oh. Well, I want to get started, and I'll get started with the assumption that we may have a few extra people coming along, and we'll go, we can go from there. But, I want to thank everybody for at least, participating. The intent here was basically to try and have a connection with, I'm having somebody with background noise. I don't know who it is. But just the intention here was just trying to connect the Watervliet business community with the people who may be involved in a lot of the, let's say, funding opportunities or the guidance or something like that they can have. More concerned. We have a number of small restaurants and businesses, but even some of the larger ones we're much concerned about. Our job here would be able to say, hey, look, we want to continue having a strong business community and help them out in any way we can. So, I want to thank everybody from, Jeff and John and Mark, Senator Breslin, Tom, everybody here that's participating in this call. I'm recording it just to say, hey, look, if we have somebody and, the word gets around and there's valuable information in here that maybe they can possibly use that to learn something from or to contact or know who to contact. So it's mostly in this sense is a networking opportunity for everybody. So what I'd like to do is, like I mentioned yesterday, is everybody that's on the, it was like a panelist, so to speak, maybe say a few minutes of what guidance that they can offer a couple of business people here, how we could survive this and where we can go forward. And if I want to start right from the top, from my screen, I'll start with Dan.
All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Dan Lordy. I'm the owner of DeLee Accounting and Cash Management here in Watervliet. So I'm both a business owner within the city as well as a CPA. We provide accounting services and tax preparation services to businesses, nonprofits, and for-profits all over the area. So from my perspective, being an accountant, it's a matter of trying to understand all of these various rules, laws that sometimes change daily with the information. As a business owner, my recommendation is really to try to stay abreast of changes in rules and try to understand what options are out there. And certainly talk to, for those business owners, talk to your accountant, talk to your banker, talk to your connections, and see what options out there. Obviously, the loan program that gets most of the press is the Federal Protection Program, the PPP, which has the built-in forgiveness, which is not yet clarified in terms of what the exact rules are going to be. So there's a lot of concern with business owners in terms of accepting those loans. But there's also the loan or economic injury development loan. And then a lot of different organizations are offering other programs as well, such as KeyBank just introduced a minority women-owned business loan program, not loan, but grant program. The Community Loan Fund has a program where you can get up to $20,000 to help fund operations. There's also other federal tax credits in terms of the employee retention credit, in which you can get a reduction of the payroll taxes that you owe, which your payroll company should be able to help you process. And then there's also options to defer employment taxes and not pay them just yet, but pay them over a period of time. So there's a lot of different options out there as a business owner. And obviously many of the folks on the call can speak more to the process, and certainly the legislators can talk about where those programs are going. But there's a lot out there. And I think, again, the key is to really have a network, as our mayor said, in terms of being able to stay connected and know who to reach out to for information.
We can get back to a few questions for anybody else, but I'll let John, would you want to say something?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm getting a little feedback. I couldn't hear. I just want to actually, Jeff's with the SBA, so I'm actually probably just as interested in hearing what he has to say. I think we all are, because I think the PPP program is a great opportunity, and admittedly, it's still a little bit in formation, so I'll be interested to hear that. The only thing I wanted to mention, because a lot of people say, well, what's the state doing? You know, obviously, the state's doing an awful lot right now in regards to the public health crisis. And obviously, the other larger crisis we deal with on a amazing volume is trying to help our constituents get through the unemployment maze. It's amazing. I think today they posted that over $7 billion has been spent on unemployment. So we're trying to get through that process. But one thing I want to mention, and I know Mark's aware of it, at the state level, right now it's a little bit uncertain what we can do with supporting small businesses. We had a very lengthy hearing, which Neil referenced earlier, which covered a lot of landscape and a lot to digest. One small thing that actually we're pushing the governor for right now through an executive order is to allow local IDAs. I know Watervliet doesn't have them, but Albany County does have an IDA. That would allow the IDAs to get back to what they used to do back in before 2004, which is to provide small business loan programs. Many of the businesses that are going to open up are going to be delayed, and this is where, you know, the PPP is well intentioned, but there's right now a prescriptive timeline. But I'm looking at some businesses may not be getting going to July or August or September, and is there a way to provide some startup for some of these small businesses, like a hair salon or a small restaurant? They just need some help in meeting the new guidelines in regards to their business being friendly and being COVID safe is what way I like to look at it. So that's something that we've been sponsoring legislation for the last several years. IDA is a tortured topic in the legislature for a lot of different reasons. It's too bad because I think they do accomplish a lot of good things. I chaired one for 13 years. I think we did some stuff in Cohoes, but on the other hand, there also have been some abuses in some areas. So we're going to keep our eyes out for that because, you know, it's not just about this short period of time. Businesses are going to need support a longer period of time. And, you know, part of yesterday's conversation, I'm sure Neil will attest to it, was also trying to find some regulatory relief. I think it was Heather Pachetti, Business Council, that said, you know, we need to go back and look at every single executive order that was issued and look at that as an opportunity to say, can we do something to help the business climate in this state? And I think it's a smart move that we will be doing as we go forward. Thank you.
Is there a possibility that LDCs can be included into that?
Well, actually, LDCs now, if they have the resources, have the ability to administer loan and grant programs. The truth be told is that LDCs didn't exist until the IDAs were told by the Authority Budget Office in New York back in 2004, 2005, you can't administer loan programs. Before IDAs did all this, there's a classic example of a state directive saying you can't do this, which led to a proliferation of 3 times more of these authorities called LDCs throughout the state of New York. It's another one of those, yeah, we're going to solve that problem. And we ended up creating another couple hundred entities throughout the state. So the LDCs do have that ability now. What's nice in the capital region is the IDAs are banding together, and the LDCs can do this too with the community loan program, the community loan fund. And oh, Mark, I forgot Linda they've already established a portal where it's zip code centric. So if you're in Cohoes or you're in Green Island and your IDA is participating, you can go and apply through their portal for an ID program run by the Cohoes ID or the Green Island. And same thing would be with the Watervliet LDC, or businesses in Watervliet want to apply through the Albany County one, they can do that. So we're ready to go. As a matter of fact, at 10:30, I'm going to leave this call because I'm calling Mr. Mohique, Department of Budget. Let it go. You're the one who's holding it up right now. So
Right.
hopefully we can get someplace. Not him personally, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, John. I'd like to go to Neil because I know you have that other conference call as well, Neil. So would you like to?
I have another conference call all day. So thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, for doing this. John and I haven't been on many of the local cities calls. There haven't been any. And so this is critically important. And I'll really say initially what I say to my staff, who are a lot younger than I am, don't get discouraged. This is the worst situation we have had in our lifetimes. And we'll get through it. And so our staff, as well as John's staff, and I'm sure Mark's staff and your staff, Mayor, is to be facilitators, to try to answer as many immediate questions. We have 3 full-time employees of mine just working on nothing but answering the phone and try to, either answer the questions, but more appropriately, direct them to the people who are the professionals who can answer those questions. And we're going to, we have to look for ideas for, from the chamber and others, and from the state that we've never thought about before. I know Senator Mayor and White Plains joined with Senator Savitsky from Queens to introduce a bill yesterday that would, for a 2-year period, increase the income tax on billionaires. And I many times checked the number of billionaires in my district, and Mr. Mayor, I think you're the only one. And it's for a 2-year period. It would raise about $5 billion. And we've just witnessed the first shot over the bow with school districts where Rensselaer has had to let go a number of teachers and has recommended a 25% increase in school taxes. None of our local municipalities or school districts can tolerate that, but I understand where they're coming from. And John and I get calls from school superintendents every day, and we have to find ways to plug those holes. So we may not be able to answer the questions, but we certainly should be able at this point in time to direct all the businesses in your district to call John's office, or to mine at area code 518-455-2225, because trying to analyze this new package, and now the new package put through the House anyway, is very generous to New York State, which it should be. We are the epicenter of the virus. We've spent the most money on fighting the virus, and we should be allowed the most monies to recover from the virus. So if that, and I'm not naive enough to think that the House version will last, but I certainly want it to last long before we start calling blue states and red states. And hopefully this virus will lead us to a state where we don't do that anymore. We talk about who are the most vulnerable, who need help, and who needs help, and get our business community back on track. But I'd also say at the same time, we have to balance that between the people who know better, the doctors and the scientists, to direct us in the right way. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Senator. I appreciate it. Tom, would you like to just chime in?
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate. My name's Tom Reynolds. I'm with the University of Albany Small Business Development Center. For those of you who aren't aware of the Small Business Development Center, we're one of the Small Business Administration's service partner organizations, the largest service partner organization, and we provide free direct one-on-one counseling and technical assistance to small businesses. Obviously, right now, most of our work is focused on the COVID disaster. I won't get into kind of the specific programs of the SBA. Obviously, we have Jeff here. He can address those. But I would talk about that we are still operating. All our staff is working. I am the only member that is in the office. Everybody's working at home. We have daily conferences amongst our staff to coordinate our resources and prioritize our clients. Our client load has been very large, but we've been working through it and addressing it. And right as you'd probably get a sense that right now the client load is starting to loosen up a little, where we're transitioning now into discussing what are the needs of small businesses going forward in terms of reopening. So we do have a working group statewide and nationally that is working on developing best practices and different resources for moving forward. So I would encourage everybody, if you're not familiar with us, if you're to reach out. I can give you our phone number. It's 518-380-5077. We can get you at least on the list for any webinars that are coming up on information that's being handed down by the SBA. We can also keep you informed as to what some of the new training programs and resources that are rolling out in the future. So with that, take questions later. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for the invitation. I'm Mark Egan, President of the Capital Region Chamber. To our business folks that are on the line, obviously these have been extremely difficult times. When this started back, the early part of March, we thought it was a health issue, and then we were going to have some shutdowns of businesses. I think we all thought it was going to last a short period of time. And as Senator Breslin said, this has been probably the most difficult time for most of us in our lives, but together we're going to get through it. But I know that right now, a lot of you are sort of looking for the light at the end of the tunnel. I won't repeat all the programs. I think that Dan did a really good job talking about a lot of the federal programs, as well as locally, such as the grant program with the Community Loan Fund. The Chamber is a partner in that program. They've issued a number of grants, but they still have some funds. And to the Assemblyman's point, if we can get approval for the IDAs to be able to contribute to the loan fund, we'll be able to help so many more businesses in our local communities. Right now, the fund has been primarily funded by banks and by our chamber. For those of you who are still trying to find where the resources are, we do have a central place on our chamber's website. That's capitalregionchamber.com, capitalregionchamber.com, and it will list all these programs that many of us have referred to today. The other thing that will be going up either today or tomorrow is a lot of resources relative to reopening. Some of you maybe have followed it more closely than others, but you probably know there's a metrics of indicators that we have to measure against, 7 of them. And unfortunately, right now in our region, is the sort of the main 4 counties I think we all think of as the immediate capital region of Albany and Rensselaer and Schenectady and Saratoga counties, but also Warren and Washington and Columbia and Greene counties. So we're lagging in a decline, 14 days in hospitalization rates, as well as 14 days in the number of deaths. So we have to get green in all those indicators before we can open that first phase of businesses. Again, I'll just touch on it quickly. For those who aren't as familiar, the first phase is primarily construction and manufacturing. You can do some retail, but they call it like curbside retail, as well as wholesale trade and ag businesses. Tomorrow is the first date that some of the regions can open up. Obviously, we're not going to be ready for that. We just got clarification a few days ago. Our concern was if we weren't ready for the 15th, were we going to have to wait 2 weeks? Because the governor talked about these 2-week windows. And we've been told that once we're green in all those areas, capital region can reopen. Again, it would be phase 1. And then we would have to wait 2 weeks for phase 2. And phase 2 is really a lot of our businesses would come online. A lot of, professional services, business to business kind of stuff, the retail, administrative support, real estate, and then again, the additional phases. I guess my last sort of quick comment is the governor is expecting that all businesses need to develop some kind of plan. And I say business, I really mean any operation, whether it's a for-profit, a nonprofit, a governmental agency. How are you going to deal with internally, whether you have 3 employees or 3,000 employees? How are you going to deal with customers? How are you going to deal with cleaning? And you don't have to submit that plan to anybody. It's more of an internal plan, but it really is also going to be a protection for you. So if you have employees and an issue comes up, if you have no plan, you're going to have a hard time defending yourself. And there's some templates out there. The state has developed a website called Forward New York. Again, on our site later today or tomorrow, we'll have resources. And it doesn't have to be complicated. It could be a page that just outlines things, but I would encourage you, if you haven't started to think of it, now's the time. Thank you, Mayor.
Mark, that was good. Thank you very much.
Well, is there one opportunity to ask a question of Mark, if you don't mind, Charles?
Yep, go ahead, Joe.
Thanks, Mayor. Mark, you did mention, and I apologize for dialing in late. I had to finish another conference, but you mentioned about the potential for the IDA to offset or maybe infuse some money into programming. Mark, do you know if they're even discussing that with the local development corporations that some of the smaller municipalities like ours might have?
Yes, and the Assemblyman mentioned it, but he spoke a few before me. That's the intent, but the first issue is the state has to give approval.
Yeah.
And the request was made, John, had to be 5 or 6 weeks ago. So, I always try to be an optimist, but the longer the state goes in acting on it, the less likely I think they're going to do so, which is really a shame. I think overall, most of us think that LDCs and IDAs probably shouldn't traditionally do grants because we know some communities haven't done it well, but this is a unique circumstance. And I think that all of our IDAs and LDCs would be willing to support it. And I don't know if you heard, Joe, the comment was, we already have this sort of a structure with the community loan fund. So that's where the monies could go into. So yeah. I think, John, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we're trying to have it where all local governments, they have some flexibility in funds, but really we need the green light from the state.
We do, and I'm actually, as much as I was getting pessimistic, the fact that we're starting to reopen New York, I think we're on the precipice of this. I'm almost thinking that now might be the time. So I'm becoming optimistic because it's not fun being pessimistic anyways.
Yeah, and so I'd say for any of you who maybe thought I'm too small and I shouldn't apply for these programs, I think that Jeff's coming up soon to speak. You can be a real small business and access it. When you first heard the first round of the PPP, the money evaporated before we knew it. There's monies that are still there, and I would encourage you to access it. And also, I have to say to Jeff, I've changed jobs before, and not the perfect timing, but Jeff went to the SBA right when hit the fan. So, any other questions? Are we going to open at the end, Mayor?
That's all I can say, Mark.
What's that, Jeff?
It's been incredibly exciting.
Yes, I know.
I think we need to applaud even the legislature for contemplating the use of IDA funding and the LDC, because I know that's one of the restricted uses of the LDC and the IDA. So to even contemplate this and think about using them as a path, fantastic.
Jeff, you want to take a shot now?
Yeah,
Thank
sure.
you.
Thank you, Mayor. So folks, good morning. I'm Jeff Boyce. I'm the Upstate New York branch manager for the U.S. Small Business Administration. And I think, our agency does a lot of different things, but relative to this conversation, we provide financial assistance and technical assistance. The technical assistance we do through our resource partners, primarily the SBDC, and Tom just did a great job of talking about that. So let's set that aside for a minute and talk about the financial assistance. Again, relative to this conversation, there are two SBA programs that are important and specifically now focused on providing assistance as it relates to dealing with the disaster. The first, Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, and that's a low-interest, long-term working capital loan program designed to help businesses essentially borrow about 6 months of working capital, work with an SBDC, craft a business plan for recovery, and then take those funds and really work through the disaster and come out of it over many months and be stronger and more successful. The CARES Act did a couple of things here for the EIDL program, we call it. It lessened or relaxed the eligibility requirements, and it also added an important feature, this EIDL Emergency Advance. It's sort of a grant program kind of bolted onto this loan program, if you will, and that provides an emergency disbursement of up to $1,000 per employee to the applicant. So if you have 10 or more employees, you get $10,000 as a grant as part of the application for the EIDL loan program. I will say, because this was a program that we could go out with first, the demand, the interest, the volume of applications was just phenomenal because the need was phenomenal. And so currently, based upon available funding, that program is only open to ag enterprises, so farmers, basically. We're hoping that more money becomes available and it may open back up further, but right now, EIDL is only open to farmers. So that leaves us with the Paycheck Protection Program. And as Mark mentioned, the first round of PPP, the $349 billion, we dispersed all of that money in 14 days. That was about 14 years worth of loans that our tiny agency was able to pump out through our lending partners in 14 days. The good news is there was a second round of monies made available. So there was an additional $310 billion allocated. And the great news is that the second round has been dispersed at a more measured pace, which I think is appropriate. And I want to really, emphasize this morning that there is still something like $100 billion eligible to be dispersed through that program. So let's think about who can apply. So for both EIDL and PPP, the eligibility is incredibly broad. It's designed first and foremost to assist small businesses, which we define as having 500 or fewer employees. So I've got to believe that encompasses, Mayor, all the businesses, in your area. But importantly, it is something that's eligible for the smallest of small businesses. So contractors, sole proprietors, self-employed individuals, those working in the so-called gig economy, all of those folks can also apply for this program. But in addition, private nonprofit organizations can also apply. So all of those 501c3 organizations in a community, they're eligible. And again, further expansion through the CARES Act legislation of faith-based organizations, churches, houses of worship, they can also apply as well. So the eligibility for PPP is incredibly broad. How do you apply? It's pretty simple. Unlike EIDL, where you'd go to the SBA website and apply, or PPP, this program works completely through our lending partners. So to find a lender to take your PPP application, you simply go to the sba.gov website, you put in your zip code, and it returns a list of participating lenders in your area. The list is huge. There is something like almost 6,000 lenders across the country. All the major banks and credit unions in the Capital District are participating in PPP lending. And they're the ones that can take your application. It is a loan structured as a forgivable grant. That's the intention, is that you take out a loan, but you achieve certain criteria, and it is hopefully fully refundable. Because it is a loan, it has some terms. It's only for 24 months, so it's short term. The interest rate is 1%, so it's incredibly low interest. But remember, there's no prepayment penalty, no collateral. And the maximum amount can be up to $10 million. But I'll tell you, both in the first round and even more so in the second round, the average loan size is incredibly small. 3/4 of the loans we did through round one were for less than $150,000. And now the average loan size for round two is something like $70,000, and 3/4 of them have again been under $50,000. So this is truly a small business program serving the smallest of our small business entrepreneurs. Just to tell you quickly, so how is the loan calculated? It's basically 2.5 times your average monthly payroll. The name of the program is the Paycheck Protection Program. It's all about giving small businesses and private nonprofit organizations 2 months worth of their payroll so they can quickly reestablish their pre-disaster headcount or maintain that workforce for an 8-week period. And so those are the triggers, the thresholds, the requirements you must achieve to have the loan forgiven. You apply through a bank or a credit union, they disperse the loan to you, that starts a clock. And for the next 8 weeks, you use those monies financially on payroll, but you can also use less than 25% on rent, utilities, and mortgage interest. You have to, as I said, reestablish or maintain your pre-disaster headcount, right? And at the end of that 8-week period, you circle back to that lender and you simply apply for forgiveness. You show how you use the funds per the eligible 75-25 split, and you're going to provide the headcount numbers. And based upon that, the lender can process the forgiveness. That's it in a nutshell. And so my call to action for everyone today in Watervliet is, if you haven't applied already for whatever reason, please know the program is still open. Lots of money is still available. It's very easy to apply, and there are lenders out there ready to take your application.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I think over the last number of weeks, that is by far the best explanation I have heard of PPP. Understandable, thorough, complete. And I think that if you're recording this, that should be the emphasis should be played on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Great idea, Senator. I can certainly clip that. Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate it. I don't know if there's a Senator or Congressman Taco's office is on. They were going to be on, but there's a couple of callers, but they're unidentified. So I want to thank everybody here, and then I'm going to open it up to general questions, and I'm going to I know Joe Smersky was one of the first on, so I'm going to if Joe has any questions, or if anybody else after Joe has questions, now's the time to ask them. Joe, do you have anything to ask?
You know, I do have a question about the PPP. We own a bar, so I don't know if the PPP will really work well for my employees, to be honest with you. I have so many employees that are bartenders that make $7.50 an hour, so they don't necessarily want me to bring them back at $7.50 an hour. They want all their tips. And then all my cooks are now making so much more money on unemployment, they don't want to come back. So, but my thought with the PPP is, could I use the PPP and use it as a loan for 24 months and not bring back my staff? For instance, having a $20,000 loan at 1% interest would help me to reopen.
So, I mean, the short answer is, that's not the intended, sort of anticipated use of the program, to simply give you a loan. The goal is to provide businesses with funding to make payroll for 8 weeks. But I get your point, right? This was a program crafted by Congress in an attempt to provide assistance to every business type and these private nonprofit organizations across the entire country. So it's an imperfect fit in some situations, perhaps like what you described. So folks that work in hospitality, tourism, restaurant, those types of businesses that have maybe lots of workers that maybe make lower wages and or work part-time or have tips, all of those could make it a less perfect fit. I mean, that's a business decision. But again, the intent of the program is to give you those monies to reestablish and meet your payroll for 8 weeks. The details on loan forgiveness have not yet come out, but I can tell you that, the program certainly contemplates partial forgiveness if you could use most of those monies for the intended purpose and reestablish or maintain much of your headcount I think you would be in good shape. And then the balance that wasn't forgivable, as you said, could be kept as a low interest loan for the 24 months, or could be returned to the lender. You would only owe the interest on that very short time period that you held those funds, the 1%. So you'd have those options. But I would not encourage folks to take these monies out and then not use any of it for the anticipated expenditures. That would not be consistent with the program objectives.
Agree.
Okay.
Could I jump in on that too with partly a question for you, Jeff, as the SBA expert, but generally the amount of the loan to be forgiven is essentially your 8 weeks of payroll, utilities, rent, et cetera, spent. However, there is that penalty component which you spoke of in terms of if your head count is lower at June 30th versus prior to the virus. Obviously, in the hospitality industry, there's a lot of businesses that are operating takeout and trying to make ends meet, but they're obviously working at a reduced capacity. I know a number of our clients have talked with us about the penalty component in the sense that they're not able to get workers to come back because of the unemployment and the additional $600 not incentive, but bonus, so to speak, that they're getting on unemployment. I understand that the SBA has more or less said as long as there's documentation stating that you have asked an employee, you've offered that position back to an employee, and if they have denied, as long as you maintain records, there will not be that penalty. I think that maybe is another important thing for Joe and other hospitality industry businesses to keep in mind as well.
Yeah, Dan, you're absolutely right. So as it relates to the headcount requirement, so you're correct. Applicants have until June 30th to reestablish that pre-disaster headcount. That was more advantageous for people who applied very early in round one. The window is now shortening as time goes on. But that's one important thing. And number two, as I said, we fully contemplate some proportional forgiveness based upon how close you get to those pre-disaster numbers. But then the last point you made is also critical. So with this program, as questions and situations arise, what SBA and our partners in this program, which is the U.S. Treasury, what SBA and Treasury have been doing is augmenting, in some cases on a daily or certainly weekly basis, this running now FAQ, which is essentially administrative guidance for the program. And there is an FAQ, a question and answer that speaks exactly to this point. And what it says is that as long as you as an employer make a good faith effort to extend the offer to come back to one of your employees, as long as it's the same job at the same pay rate, if that employee refuses, declines for whatever reason, you would not be sanctioned, adversely impacted by that decrease in headcount. Now, it could still pose a challenge in terms of you expending those funds 75% on payroll. But remember, when you apply for the funds, you're not giving them a list of your employees. It doesn't matter who the people are. It's about numbers of employees on an FTE basis and dispersing 75% or more of those monies on payroll in general. And remember too that payroll is calculated to include not just salaries and wages and tips, but also benefits that an employer provides to the employee, health insurance benefits, which are very expensive and very important. Also leave time benefits or employer contributions for retirement. All those things go into your calculation when you apply and count in terms of your expenditures. And that also gets back to this question of, well, maybe it's more lucrative to be on unemployment with the enhanced benefit versus PPP. Maybe in some instances. But remember, if you're offering your employee to come back, hopefully, first of all, the important relationship with the business is maintained. But it's the complete package. It's not just the paycheck, but it's the benefits, the leave time accruals, the retirement contributions. You're keeping the employee whole in all those respects by using these monies. So the hope is that that is very enticing for the vast majority of workers.
I guess a comment I'd make, Charles, too, is that, if you remember, Congress acted very quickly in March to try to solve what we thought was coming at us. And what we thought was coming at us and what came at us were two different things. So whether it's, whether these programs, whether it was the extra, into July, the $600, I think it'll be interesting to see what gets extended, what changes. I think if the congressman's staff was able to be on the call and the senator alluded to it, there's a package right now that's come to the House. It'll now be, debated. The Senate will have a version. We're told that there's almost zero likelihood that something will pass before Memorial Day. One of the components of that package that's going to be real important to Watervliet and to all of our communities is the first rounds were almost all really geared to employers, for-profits and nonprofits on payroll. A major component of this next phase is providing funding to communities. So I know, for you having to wait another, weeks to find out if monies are coming is a really tough spot. But that's at least what we're hearing from, we get briefings 3 times a week on federal policy, and that's what we've been advised.
Hi, Mark. This is Marilyn Smith from Congressman Thompson's office. And sorry, my phone was muted, so I apologize. But what Mark is saying is correct. The congressman is headed to DC actually today, and this is exactly what they're working on is, okay, what we did at first was in a different set of circumstances in a different context than where we are now and how this has evolved and what we think we need going forward. And so that is all part of the conversation. And yes, a lot of that is articulated in the House proposal that is out there right now, but everybody is fully anticipating that that will not be what it finally looks like when it's passed. So it's definitely an ongoing, moving target as far as how do we fix some of the things that, yes, we did quickly, but they didn't quite work the way we had hoped, and how do we fix those so that they'll be more effective?
Thank you, Marilyn. That's, we're hoping actually for a little bit better news, but we're moving in a direction, I guess. That's all we can do. Thank you.
Well, and we'll see what that news shape. Like I said, the congressman is going this afternoon, and they have scheduled votes for tomorrow. So we'll see what that starts to look like, as tomorrow progresses forward, and then we'll go from there.
Good. Yep. Thank you. Is there any other questions for any of the people attending, or is there any concerns from the business community itself on what more we can do or they can do? We're here. Any questions? Everybody burnt out? No.
Mayor, if I may, a little bit for the local businesses that are on the call. I know I see a couple here from the Black Bear, and Tim, certainly I know you were working last night based on that fire in the city here for us, and thank you very much, because that fire was addressed very, very quickly. So thanks for all your efforts last night and for being on the call right now. We are working with the state of New York on a program that's going to be specific for small businesses within the city of Watervliet. We're putting together the final touches right now through our micro enterprise program in order to help from a retainage standpoint versus a job creation. The state was very amenable to hearing the potential adaptive reuse of the program. We're almost at the point now of finalizing that and rolling out an application. Grants right now potentially can be up to 5,000, but again, we're just waiting on that final number from the state and the acceptance of the plan. So I don't want to say it's premature. We're about 99% there to start that process, and once we complete that, we're going to start talking very swiftly to our business community here in the city in order to help with some immediate relief right here.
Joe, this is Tom Reynolds. Is that CDBG funds that you're looking at, or?
It's through the micro enterprise funding that we have currently been awarded. So again, we've been working with them. We're just waiting for the final approval to commence with that. But like I say, we're about 99% sure that we're going to be able to operate the way we intended. And again, it was more of the criteria in the micro enterprise is for the job creation. They were very open to the idea of the retention side and how we plan to use it. And like I say, we're working through the details that they need to see as far as an application criteria, but they've been very open through the process.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention if they need, if the applicants need business plan is still a requirement, or the training requirement that they have for the new requirement. You know, we have the Entre Skills program, which is online. They can do. Right now, the micro enterprise program doesn't accept that as to meet their training requirement, but the state employment under unemployment does require that. I don't know if the state would make, but they, would make an exception under this case for existing businesses if you're doing existing businesses. But we'd be happy to help to offer those resources.
Yeah, and you know what, and that's one of the stumbling blocks right now is that criteria for the training mechanism that was needed.
Right.
Right now, we're probably out about having to complete that within 2 years of it and not prior to. But again, as explaining it to the state, we have a lot of businesses that have been up and operating successfully for many years. So what type of training can we give them more to make their business infusion of funding to try to help them through the past couple of months? So that's the one thing we're trying to work through is that training part of it. But I appreciate your efforts that could be done too. So thanks, Tom.
And Joe, I don't know if you already have like sort of an application or criteria, but I don't know if a couple of years ago, the county had received funds for a program like that. Certain communities in the county were excluded. I can't recall if Watervliet was excluded. When you were with Colony was excluded, but the chamber administered that on behalf of the county. So if you want, John Trabella on our team, if you need to reach out to John for what process do we use your application, we were happy to share whatever we have.
That's fantastic, Mark. Thank you. Go ahead.
I just had a couple of questions on the, for any of the other business members here. I mean, you're on the call. What are you hearing from anybody else? Is, is it all the same? We're all in the same boat. Is there something specific that somebody really could say, hey, this is what I could use the most, or what areas could we concentrate on? Anything? Joe or Tim? Nothing? Any from the other restaurant owners?
I mean, here's the kind of long and short of it, right? Where the hospitality it's tough because we have so many tipped employees. For the PPE, it almost didn't seem beneficial for us. And as far as us being such a small business, and with me being a fireman, we didn't want to stay open during this and do takeout and do stuff like that because we had a high potential if things did get out of hand here in the city with the COVID situation that I could bring it to the Black Bear, and we didn't want to deal with that situation as well. So right now we've been closed since March
16th.
Yeah. So we have not been operating, but yet we still have our cost of National Grid. We still have our cable costs because we want to keep our phone on. These reoccurring costs, and yes, we did have. I think we're pretty business responsible as far as having a fund, backup funds for any kind of situation like this, but we are running on reserves. And the tough part's going to be if we don't open until, say, August or September, God forbid, we're not going to have those funds to be able to, again, rebuy product that we may have lost.
Yeah.
And stuff of that situation.
Yeah, and to give you an idea, so our 15-year anniversary is in 2 weeks, right? So it gives you an idea how long we've been in the community, how long we built this business, and to all be flushed away. And let me just say one little thing that just irked us. So our liquor license just ran out, right?
Yeah.
So if it ran out before June 1st, ours actually runs out June 5th, 15th. If it ran out before June 1st, we would have been able to extend out the $2,000 payment for our liquor license. But because it's the 15th, I now have to pay that, or I won't even have a liquor license anymore. It's things like that where I'm already on reserve, and now if I don't have a liquor license active, well, then how am I even going to reopen? So that was something that happened yesterday because we thought we could defer the payment, but now we can't. So I mean, there's definitely an immediate need for us, and the PPP doesn't make sense, but you know, we want to come back. We just don't know if, you know, we can, but not for too much longer. You know what I'm saying?
Joe, is that something that you can talk to Assemblyman McDonald about the liquor license extension?
I have no idea.
He's
John?
back.
I'm sorry, I had to leave here.
It's okay.
John, just because I was going to say the same thing. One of the things that Joe just brought up, and I don't know if you could call the state liquor authority, but Joe, just want to quickly summarize what you were saying.
So basically, our liquor license expires it's actually June 30th. But you have to have your application in along with payment at least a month prior. So if our application, if our liquor license was to expire on May 30th, it would be fine. Then you can defer out the payment. I believe you would pay by, I want to say it was July 1st. They basically gave you a month extension.
Okay.
But seeing as we expire on the 30th, we're not eligible for any kind of extension on the $2,000 fee for our liquor license. You know, we haven't necessarily been using the liquor license since March, and who knows when we're going to be using it again. And it's just, again, it's cutting into the funds that we're kind of trying to stay afloat with, and we're not necessarily using that aspect of it, if you will.
Tim, have you been closed, or I'm sorry, I stepped out, so I didn't catch the whole thing. You're closed?
Yes, my apologies. We closed up on March 16th at 8 p.m. And I'll just give you a quick, I'm a fireman here in the city, and Joe, I appreciate those words about last night too. I didn't acknowledge that before. So with the potential of what we do here in the city as firemen and running the ambulance and whatnot, Joe and I basically decided that it would probably be best if we did close, because if something happened here in the city where I was exposed to COVID, we didn't want to bring it into the Black Bear, unknown and whatnot. So we have been closed for this entire time, and now, the other costs, you got to keep your national grid going. You got to keep, other essential things going, which we had a slush fund of, money that if something like this happened, but obviously we're 2 months closed right now, so it's going to start to dwindle. We have enough to get through maybe another couple of months, but if, in August or September, we're still not open, that's the, startup part of it, and that $2,000 is cutting into what we're not using right now, if you will. You know what I mean?
Let me do this. Let me follow up, and I'll get back to Charlie with that and share that information to you and see where we're at. And, hopefully, I know I walked away, but, there is talk about the PPP being modified to maybe be extended, because I'm hoping, particularly in the restaurant industry, there needs to be some way of recognizing that some states like New York are a little bit slower with allowing them to start to reopen, and therefore it makes logical sense to get a little bit further out where maybe the PPP actually becomes attractive. Because by that point, the unemployment assistance is starting to dwindle. People are going to be interested in getting back to work. I've got to jump to a call at 11. Thank you, Charlie, and everyone for your attention. I appreciate it very much, and I will follow up. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to thank everybody for for joining us today. And I will record. It's being recorded. I will put this back out on the web for anybody who they want to recommend watching it again. And if you have any questions, you could shoot them my way. I can certainly share all the contact information from anybody, and anything else I share, I'll share with everybody as I do with the general email. So I do appreciate everything, and unless there's anything else, I'd say we'll probably close it. Anybody?
Mayor,
Thank you very much.
Thank you for hosting us.
Opportunity, and thank you to my friend Joe Lasavita for looping me into this conversation. It's great to see him even on a little tiny screen. Joe, we got to get together when this is all over.
Well, Jeff, I know Senator Breslin mentioned, your great explanation, but all the years we worked together at the state, I wouldn't have expected anything less. Great job with explaining that, pal. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joe.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Tim. Thank you again for everything, and appreciate it. All right, Dan, thank you. We'll be in touch, and we'll be. I'm going to be pushing anybody your way, or the senators or assemblyman's way, and any of the other participants. You can expect any help we can give them. All right, thank you.
Happy to help any way we can.
Bye.
Take care.